Yo, but and obviously the biggest conversation around this was Kendrick Lamar's two features and a just a hook, maybe, I don't know, some ad libs.
Well, yeah.
I did a reaction on my channel, and a lot of people were really critical of that Kendrick verse for a couple of reasons. One, I heard a lot of people just tell me the verse wasn't good, and I think they were just so used to. Kendrick is an interesting artist because he has so many different ways that he can rap that he probably has fans of particular styles, and when he doesn't do that style, people can be upset that they're not getting their favorite Kendrick style. Two, there was a lot of people who were just really critical about what he was talking about in the verse. You know what I mean? I thought the verse was actually dope, to be honest, to me. And it was interesting to hear him on a Carti track like that, just flat, just straight up, like on a track with Carti was like something I never thought I'd see. But then there was a lot of people who are also critical because they look at this as, from that point of view, another example of hypocrisy, right? Because they looked at Mr. Morale and having Kodak Black on there as an example of hypocrisy. And they look at Playboi Carti and his dicey history with being pregnant, at least accusations that he's, a joke man, serious stuff. And the stuff that Iggy Azalea is saying all the time. And to see Kendrick on this. Now, I look at that argument particularly where I honestly can see where people would come from with that, because generally speaking, even away from Kendrick or anything that came out in this battle, we do look at people based on the company they keep. We do like just a straight up thing. So I don't think this is like 100% just based off of people who are antagonistic to Kendrick, TDE, or whatever. And I think the crux of that conversation was really captured by Fantano's review. That clip from his review really went viral. And I think he did speak for a lot of people who might look at this as something they didn't expect or something that reflects poorly on what they think Kendrick represents and how they view Kendrick as representing certain morality, examples of morality over the past year. Fantano, can you break down what you basically said in the video for people who haven't seen that clip, and let's talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, just to kind of put it super bluntly, I don't really think it boils down to much more other than just like kind of expecting the walk he's walking to align with the talk that he's talking, because I mean, he is an artist, especially over the course of this Drake beef, who has made a lot of moral stances, and we can go further back than that to, moments where he's on stage at Glastonbury and he's like, they judge you, they judge Christ, Godspeed for women's rights. They judge you, they judge Christ, Godspeed for women's rights. Like, there are moments where kind of selectively he seems very deeply invested about the well-being of women, men stepping up to be fathers, so on and so forth. And there are other moments where he doesn't seem to be as invested. And, beyond that, like, I guess I just didn't really see what artistically these features and appearances brought for him and his catalog. I mean, to be straight up, I'll echo a lot of the sentiments people have said earlier. Like, there are elements of the album I really like. I think I enjoyed maybe about the same amount of songs that FD did from the album, maybe a couple less. If there were more, when it comes to this style of hip hop or anything that sounds, along these sorts of lines, like, I wish there were more tracks on it that went crazier. I probably would have loved the album if like at least half of it were more like, pop out, like if more tracks on the record showed up with that kind of fucking relentless energy, I probably would have been super into it. And I think there are other, musically analogous things that I enjoy that are not Playboi Carti. Maybe I'll make a more accurate sort of comparison here than Professor Sky that I know nobody's probably going to get. I don't think anybody's into this fucking band, but there's this old English post-punk band called The Fall. And, kind of one of the prime elements of a Fall song is pretty much the only guarantee that you get is that maybe everybody on the track is operating at a similar tempo, at a emphasis on similar. Like the drum beat will start going, the bass will start going, and it doesn't really sound like they've written a song so much as they're just kind of like generally improvising a performance. Then the singer steps up and he kind of just sounds like he's drunk half the time, and he's kind of moaning and just doesn't really have a full verse written. He just kind of repeats a few lines a bunch of times, and it's all really hype and it's all really energetic. It sounds totally fucking chaotic. And I was listening to them this morning, because every once in a while I do put them on, and I'm like, this kind of reminds me of some of the songs on the Carti record where the drum sounds out of whack with the synth. Carti's vocally switching up flows 4 to 5 times. You have Swamp Izzo going, Wizzo! Ah! A few gunshots popping up, some other kind of noise happening randomly. And it's like, yeah, this is like pure fucking chaos. I could sort of get down with this. If anything, the record wasn't crazy enough for me. I often go into his records feeling like, okay, this is going to be a fucking rage album. We're to go fucking insane. I'm ready. And, I see the track list. I'm like 30 songs. And then, he kind of steps out with the biggest amount of energy right out of the gate. And then as it continues, it's like, okay, well, we were so insane off the bat, but like, where did that go? But, to move into the Kendrick tracks, like, if I want to hear that quirky kind of weird ad-libby chemistry, I don't want to hear Kendrick glazing Carti. I'd rather hear him collaborate with Keem. If I want to hear a track like Backdoor, I'd listen to a track off Damn. I'd listen to Luther, maybe 30 for 30. And, if I want to hear a track like Good Credit, I don't know. I kind of rather wish Kendrick hopped on a song like Pop Out instead and tried to match Carti's energy and do something crazy, and do something that was just like a little bit out of his usual element. Try to match the rage vibe, but it feels like Carti made some concessions to sort of make him fit on that track a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, like I said, it's really about walking the walk that you're talking for me personally. As far as the Kendrick thing goes, it has a little to do with whatever he's doing creatively on the tracks. If he wants to make the songs to sound a certain way, I mean, go for it. It's just really more to do with like, you sort of seem to draw really strong critical lines with certain artists around similar or worse behaviors, but like you kind of turned a blind eye in this situation a little bit, I think. And that's all.
What do you think, Screw?
My whole thing, well, with the Carti album is what I like to do sometimes, because I just started really listening to Playboi Carti with the rollout of this album, like when he was dropping stuff. And because I always kind of just wrote Carti off with the sound that he had to just be like, or whatever. But what I started doing lately, and it kind of actually happened with Designer's verse on Panda, where I started getting into arguments with people where I go like, well, people are like, well, this is the wackest rapper I've ever heard. He's so whack. He's so whack. And then when I actually heard the Panda verse, and I was like, lyrically, there's a part of Panda when he's like, Papa Perk, I can stand up gorillas, they finna fill you with bananas for feelings, I'm finna pull up on the phantom, the niggas. And I was like, wait a minute, if Eminem would have rapped this on like different production, people would have been like, look at the syllables, look at the way he's lining it. So I started realizing people don't hear lyrics. They hear, well, depending on how the artist is promoted to you, you hear them different. And that's kind of like I take into my reactions and stuff I do. So I started looking for, instead of just writing Playboi Carti off, I started looking at some of the, okay, if I strip out the of it, and I go to like Rap Genius and I read what he's saying, there's certain parts, and maybe because I had the bar so low, that there were certain parts I was like, no, if you actually listen to like this setup to this punchline was actually pretty clever. You're not going to hear it because he's doing it in 40 different voices, and he's a baby here, and then he's Future here, and then he's whatever. But so I started trying to find different things like that. So it made it a bit easier for me, and like even my whole, I call it my journey of learning Cardinese. So I started finding the good parts that I could find from it. So this was Playboi Carti's first full album I listened to, and I would say it was entirely too long, especially for like, I feel like the energy he was trying to give. But I was more surprised pleasantly than I was disappointed, and maybe because my bar was already so low that I just found things that I like. And basically, like everybody said here, there's about 7 songs that I would say that if that would have been like an EP or mixtape or whatever, that would have been awesome. It was everywhere, but I came out more positive than a lot of people. And when it goes to the what's the hypocrite conversation, I guess because I was like brought up in battle rap just as much as hip hop, I look at that completely different. And that's just how I look at it, where I think people will go, well, like Fantano said, like he's holding a higher moral, like a lot of this stuff is about moral high ground and what he's saying, which is true. But the way I looked at it is like, well, yeah, I guess if he was ever battling Playboi Carti, then he could definitely use this, and then Playboi Carti could call him a hypocrite. But I feel like he was battling Drake. So the point was to shine a light on all the negative things on this person to make him look the worst. And I guess I could compartmentalize it more because I'll watch a battle where somebody gets eviscerated and exposed and is just the worst person. You're like, oh my gosh. And then the next event, you love him because he won, or it's just, so I guess, and like I said, like that's specific to me. I know a lot of people aren't like that. So I looked at it different. I didn't look, if Kendrick was going around just like, this is what I don't like about Future. This is what I don't like about, and he was just, if it wasn't just, I'm trying to make Drake, this is a smear campaign on Drake because we're doing a battle, then I would feel more of the hypocrite thing. But I do understand, I do understand what Fantano's saying, because if you're not from like the Smack DVD battle stuff, then you probably will see it more like that, because I was able to just compartmentalize it. And also, I want somebody to clip Fantano going, pow, because I need that.
Yeah, if somebody gets that up on Twitter, no, I would love that. I mean, I need to look it up if we need to.
Somebody,
but no, I mean that part was hype as fuck. But still, with that being said, like, I mean, I get the point that you're saying, and I get the comparison that you're making, but like, also this clearly did like run deeper for Kendrick in terms of his personal feelings around it. He and I take him at his word on this. He made it clear he wants this man to die. either literally or like his career to die, but he made it pretty clear. He wishes death upon this man. He wants the Grim Reaper at his doorstep.
No, you talking about Drake?
He said
I hope people like you. I wish people like you.
Like you should die.
Like you
Yeah.
should.
Not like himself. Let me jump in real quick, because I don't know where Screw's at, but I gotta. Like,
Drake is like him. That's an interesting theory. Drake is like himself.
Drake is like himself. So I want to do a couple pings. I thought Screw said something really interesting when he was like, sometimes people respond to like the aesthetics of a lyricist as opposed to like their actual bars. Shout out to one of my homies, Turb, who made this like really insightful comparison between Kendrick and Chief Keef, and how like if you just take them at their core components, they're both making the same music, but Chief Keef is a drill rapper, and thus we don't give him, he's never going to be on GQ. You know what I'm saying? As a response to that I Don't Like video is one of the most raw things in the history of art. That video of them on house arrest with guns, unsupervised, underage, that is one of the most rawest things in the history of art, right? But never is going to get the credit that, I don't know, Kendrick flying through the air doing all right will get. And then another shout out is my boy Dom from the Pot of My Podcast. They're a little spicy. I gotta keep them calmed down sometimes. But he brought up Party Die in his take, and how like if even with this, I get the Smack DVD comparison and compartmentalization, which I overall am a advocate for. And when it comes to art and like consumption of art, I think we should, as I was saying earlier, we can't put so much of ourselves into our consumption of art, because like that's just a impossible to stay consistent thing as a consumer of the medium. But Kendrick did very explicitly in Party Die say this era for these types of people is over. And I think we all co-signed that. At least I know I did. Like that was where my head was. And so when we talk about like him and or Mr. Morale with I'm doing it again with Kodak, there was an artistic, like you can have issues with that. And there's issues to take with that. But you also can't take away the fact that there was an artistic purpose behind Kodak's inclusion on that album. There was a narrative and thematic purpose to that. This is just Kendrick being like, look, I got to keep on hitting the streets with content. I got to keep it. I got to keep on keeping on. I got to make sure that the kids that's vamping know that I'm vamping too. You know what I'm saying? It's real hello fellow teenagers energy to me. And like I just can't give it a pass any more than I always give artists to do shit that I think is cringe or contradictory or whatever. But it is cringe and contradictory in my opinion. And the verses weren't that great. I love that Luka Doncic bar. But other than that, like I'm skipping the Kendrick features and going straight to Future. Like, and think about that shit. Right? How like ass backwards that is, but that's
I mean, for the vibe, Future fits into the vibe. Future's literally a direct Carti influence. Like he fits in the vibe more. And you know, to go deeper into the point that you just made, like, yeah, in the wake of my comments and other people kind of bringing this up, like a lot of people said, "Oh, you didn't care about Kodak." Collaborating with him. Well, one, I did bring that up in light of the review, but two, like, and you could agree with whether or not he actually succeeded at this. On the record, he didn't bring Kodak on to be like, hey, here's this bad guy. Now I'm going to collaborate with him. Let's do it. You know, he painted him as a sympathetic character who was a victim of circumstance and also capable of change and moving beyond the bad things that had happened to him. And there's no redemption arc there with Carti. He literally calls him his evil twin on the song. Like that's pretty much like a reference to the things to the things people know about Carti. It's like, hey, not only is this a bad guy, but he's like the evil version of me. Like, what the fuck?
Moni, do you have any thoughts on this?
Do I? Just a comment on the evil twin part. I think that has to do with Carti's aesthetic of being this evil villain, this vampire. But Fantano also stated like this was deeper to Kendrick, deeper before Kendrick, because he mentioned he thinks Drake should die or people like him should die. And I feel like, yes, he did say that. But let's also add in the fact where he tells him to take that mask off. I want to see what's under those achievements, and provides him resources and options to become a better person. Like, I feel like people pick and choose what they want to quote from Kendrick Lamar to push a certain type of narrative. He literally ends the song essentially saying, yeah, you a freaky frog, but I could have helped you, nigga, because I did the work to get myself together. I've helped others get their shit together. I wrote songs giving insight on how to get it together, To Pimp a Butterfly, Mr. Morale. But instead, you lied on the only artist that could offer you some help, which is me. In Kendrick's discography, he's always revealed who he was. He's always talked about him battling the good and the bad side of himself, or his friends having the good sides and the good bads of himself. But he still loves them because those are his people. He's always wrestled with the two sides of himself. They like it when I'm pro-Black, but I'm more Kodak Black. I'm both. I know both. My family and my friends are both. But for some reason, people only want to accept Kendrick Lamar as a savior with a God complex and kick his back in for the other stuff. The whole time he's been running from that narrative. Why didn't we call Kendrick a hypocrite for putting 100 hoods on stage at the Pop Out? Why aren't we calling Kendrick a hypocrite for working with the many artists on GNX? We aren't, because it's stupid. And you understood what the point was. You understood. I didn't like him working with Kodak Black, but again, I understood what he was trying to do. He has Kodak Black, Baby King on both of his interludes. This is what happens when one person goes left, even though they have the resources. This is what happens when the other person goes right. And they have the mentors. Lefty Gunplay, someone who also has a sketchy past. Someone else he did an interview saying, Kendrick Lamar talked to me about my past, but he also prayed for me and said he wanted me to do better. Kendrick is still working with these type of people. He worked with these type of people all the time. You see him again put 100 hoods on stage. Why are we acting shocked that this man is working with criminals? He has been talking about helping criminals forever. Rehabilitation seems to be his thing in all of this. Making them face the mirror, working on changing. Now, again, I don't know. This is just me assuming that this could be what the discourse is with Playboi Carti, but Kendrick appears to know him. Playboi Carti was a fan of him. Kendrick's little brother, Hit J3, runs with Playboi Carti. That's where I believe that they got the connection from. Like, I just don't get the fact of separating him from who he is, and y'all want to place this savior, holier than thou complex on him. And it's because that's how you see him, and you don't believe he's allowed to do anything else. Remember, like Screw said, this was a battle. You go into any URL, King of the Dot, anywhere, Queen of the Ring, if we talking about the ladies, they throw mud on each other. And it just so happens Drake fucked up when he threw mud and talked bad about Whitney. And this was a response from Kendrick. Making Kendrick responsible for every single artist he might work with in the past or in the future is idiotic to me, especially when he's not telling listeners to ignore the shit that Playboi Carti might have done. Carti also hasn't been accused of or been convicted with messing with minors. One person has a history of it. If artists are responsible for how other artists move, we're never going to have collaborations, ever. We're never going to have movies, ever. Like, it's just a very pick and choosy thing when it comes to Kendrick Lamar. And I don't get it. It's laughable. It's not genuine to me. This is just another form of selective outrage. Kendrick isn't Chris Hansen. He had one goal, and that one goal was to destroy Drake in a battle. And like Fantano said, it was deeper for him because this has been going on for a decade, and his main goal was to destroy Drake. That's it.
So if I do want to respond to like the not your savior part, which is always, and I want to be clear. Kendrick is like my third favorite rapper of all time at this point. Like when
people start that way, they're about to say some bullshit.
But I promise you I'm not though. I promise you I'm not. He's my third is Lupe, Nas, Kendrick at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
This man dressed as Jesus Christ for like 5 years straight. So I can't
with the crown of thorns,
right? With the blood, you know what I'm saying? And like I definitely get the concept of redemption arcs for a lot of people. I've never criticized him for putting 100 hoods on stage. That's to me different on so many levels because of the context, because those were his folks, his community, and you don't throw away community. Now, if you tell me that
Playboi Carti is not his community, because he clearly is.
Well, I don't know enough about Playboi and his relationship with Kendrick. Like you're saying that him and Hit J3 are connected, and so maybe there's a connection there. I don't understand. So if that's the case, then that is plausible. But it still conflicts directly with his own words in Party Die, in parts of Whacked Out Murals. You know what I'm saying? And so like we can contextualize it differently, see it differently, right? And this is not a hill I'm dying on because I didn't care enough for the music to feel passionately about it. But I don't think it's implausible or illogical to say we were just talking the opposite of this context, not even within the context of the battle, but again, on Party Die, on Whacked Out Murals, and probably some other stuff I'm not thinking about right now, about holding the culture and the industry to a higher code. Mm-hmm. And so to uncritically and with minimal, I'll say, artistic merit, pop out with Carti, like people are gonna side eye. Because I was planning something around this. I was looking at his own Reddit page. It's split. This created a battle amongst Kendrick fans who, since the battle, they've been stronger than a closed fist than any rap community that's out there. They're starting to push, in my opinion, like Beehive What's Nicki Minaj's people?
The Barbs.
Barbs. It's starting to push Barb's tones, in my opinion.
I feel like that is so disrespectful.
I don't have a lot of respect for Reddit. That might just
be so disrespectful.
But my point is that I don't think it's unreasonable to say, I hear you say X on this track, and then I hear you pop up on Y rappers' songs, and I know these two things completely conflict with each other.
It's been his story from day one. It's been his story from day one. And damn, K-Dot, can you pray for me? Can you give me guidance on how to handle this? Somebody hurt my son. Kendrick, I can't pray for you. I would kill them.
So
if somebody killed my son, that means somebody getting killed.
Thank you. Thank you for quoting it correctly.
Can I add this, since we bringing up Jesus? You think they would have side-eyed Jesus for washing Jezebel's feet?
They did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bad optics.
You think? I mean, this is what I'm getting at. I'm like, he was around criminals. He was amongst the people. I feel like he would have got memed to death today because of how many people who are representing them. And he's like, I don't recognize none of y'all. None of y'all talk to me. First of all, I look at this whole Kendrick situation, and I'm looking back at 2009 where he said in a song, "I Want to Be Heard," he says, "I'm working on my hooks, my nigga. I ain't trying to battle you, but if I did, I guarantee that overshadow you like a fucked up taper that turned to a bowl cut. I'm a close cut to Common and Gucci Mane. I'm a close cut to Common and Gucci Mane. And that's a comparison that you probably wouldn't understand because I can touch the people and still keep it ghetto." What did Samuel L. Jackson say at the Super Bowl? Too loud.
Too ghetto.
Too ghetto. I feel like this is something he's been very consistent about. And it's funny because in his moment where people are expecting a Thriller-like album from him, right? Something like Mr. Morale on steroids. He comes back with GNX and he puts on for the young artists that he's making an influence on, right? In that same interview that you're talking about, Moni, with Lefty Gunplay, he said, "I believe in God again because of my interaction with Kendrick Lamar." When I look at from that optic, cousin, I say to myself, if Playboi is an ounce of the asshole that we are making him out to be, well, I'd say Kendrick is probably a good influence to have around him. If there's some kind of alliance that runs blood deep, I'll put quotation marks around that. If there's some kind of alliance, he probably would look out for him because he said to Drake, as Moni said, during the middle of that crazy battle where Drake was the one that said, I slit you with a razor. Remember that in Heart Part 6? You probably forgot about that. He told Drake in the midst of this, "You lied about the only artist that can offer you some help." Wait a minute. You were offering me help, sir? So I'm looking at this and I'm like, the last point I'm going to make. There's a difference between Kendrick Lamar and K-Dot, and we got to stop ignoring it because it's been that since the first mixtape. This is the same Kendrick Lamar that every once in a while, y'all might think he just glitching out. But when he says, "Bitch, I do this," that's probably K-Dot. When he says, "Michael Jordan, bitch," Michael Jordan, that's K-Dot. "I pray my D gets big as the Eiffel Tower," that's probably K-Dot. He don't just disappear because he makes some amazing art. If anything, I look at that and I say, he's just showing you himself. You know the funniest part about all this? I wouldn't be surprised if you, because I've met Kendrick Lamar, I've worked with Kendrick Lamar. I wouldn't be surprised, Mr. Fantano, if you said that and Kendrick said, "You're absolutely right." And that's been the point. I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah, I don't think he's beyond unreasonable. And look, I mean, I don't know how other people feel who have sort of voiced similar sentiments to mine, but like, I personally don't feel outraged. Like, I still have a lot of faith in Kendrick as an artist. I still love GNX. I'm still looking forward to his next record, and I still have every last record that he's put out that I've enjoyed up until this point. But with that being said, like, I don't think I'm having savior level expectations of Kendrick. I'm not looking at him like he's Jesus Christ to look like to seek a little bit more consistency on this issue. And simultaneously, I feel like we need to really pick which way we're going to have it. I don't think we can simultaneously tell ourselves, "Oh, Kendrick is not our savior," but then feed ourselves this narrative that behind the scenes he's every rapper's guidance counselor. And maybe on some degree he is, maybe he is helping out dudes. But the thing is like he's either not that guy that we're not looking up to because he's a flawed human being just like anybody is, or he's like Christ moving behind the scenes helping everybody as he moves along, which is
why can't he be both? Why can't he be both?
Because they're literally the opposite things. They're literally the opposite things.
That's not how it is. The thing is, I mentor YNs. I talk to young men on a regular basis. One of my favorite quotes about the Black Panthers is that they weren't seen as dangerous as they were when they had guns in their hand. They were seen as dangerous as they were when they started having a free breakfast program. You lead a man, you feed a man, you can lead a man. What I'm looking at this is Kendrick just gave me a verse on one of my biggest projects that's really important at this stage in my career. Yeah, I'm Playboi Carti, but this is important because that's the guy right now. He just fed me. So you give me, let me land this. You gave me an opportunity on using your platform, and who knows what those conversations are. All I can say is from the conversations I have with artists, you'd be surprised the many places it goes. You know who's really good at this? Shout out to my OG Murs. Murs has had these kind of conversations with Ab-Soul that's like, thank God there's a Murs in the room, and it took them having a studio session to have these certain type of conversations.
Listen. I hear everything that you're saying, but the thing is,
I'll let you
pause.
Fantano, let him finish his point.
The only point that I was going to make in that is that I don't think it's of those extremes. I think that it's the same thing that happened in Training Day. In Training Day, Officer Hoyt, Denzel's character said, I can't trust you unless you got a little dirt on you. They can't trust you unless you got a little dirt on you. I think that same thing applies to the relationships that you see in the industry. If you too goody two shoes, and if you are this Jesus-like savior figure, he don't even get in the room with a Carti. Oh, that's that's highly too righteous. No, if you can understand me on my level and not judge me for where I am, I'm more likely to be open to whatever critiques you may have about what I have going on because you've at least met me at my level. That's my only point.
So can I
wait real quick? Fantano had a point he wanted to make in that exchange. I want to get you back on that.
Oh, well, I was going to say, if he is actually behind the scenes encouraging him in that way, how are we going to see that sort of manifest if that push or that encouragement is actually happening? Because like from all that we know, this collaboration, these crossovers, obviously they came to light recently because the album just dropped, but they could be months or weeks old at this point. And Iggy Azalea just put Carti on blast the other day for not seeing his kid. So it's like, when is Carti going to turn this leaf based off of this collaboration with Kendrick?
That's not Kendrick's job.
Let me jump in real quick because I think we're playing a really
that's not Kendrick's job, but we're going to put
it's not. It's not his job because you don't get to dictate how quick and how fast.
If it's not his job, why are we feeding ourselves this narrative that he's doing it?
That's not your place. You cannot control
time. But if that's not his job, why are we feeding ourselves?
Let me dive in
real quick. FD had a point he was trying to make.
I think we're playing a very dangerous game to begin with by conflating communal and elder and street outreach with a guest appearance on the song. I think we're playing a dangerous game in saying that it even just conflating, like, again, piggybacking off of one of the homies' takes that I believe in, because I've also worked with YNs for a long time. These dudes have strong ethical codes. And you know the types of dudes that'll put hands on a woman and be a deadbeat, and you know the ones that don't and never do the two cross. And I know if you know, then you know. So I can't rock with, and I think it's a dangerous game to like conflate. Hey, we know Kendrick is about the streets, is about the community, and like he's doing this track with Carti with that in mind. When we haven't been given that information at all from Kendrick or Carti, that's a narrative we're applying to the situation. It's dangerous to do that when, like, again, I don't know. I don't even know Carti had a baby with Iggy Azalea. Who? Which one? Azalea Banks? Whichever one it is. I didn't know that until recently, right? I don't know the situation with the pregnant woman. But that's not, homie, let me put an arm around you situations. That's accountability situations. Dudes get jacked up for shit like that, right? And so, like, to massage it into the I am not your savior narrative, I just think I think it's for the sake of the realities of what the good that Kendrick legitimately does that we can see, such as the pop-out concert. We should keep it within that context. And within that context, as much as I love Kendrick and I'm not outraged, I haven't made content about this, I don't plan on it. But I looked at that inside out and said, yeah, this is in direct conflict with things you've been saying up until this point, you know? And I think that's a fair take to have.
Real quick, Screwface has got something to say. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I just was going while everybody, I was listening, but while everybody was talking, I went back and read the lyrics of Party Die. And I think what happens sometimes, especially when it comes to somebody as dense as a Kendrick Lamar, sometimes I think we hear something and go, this is what he was saying. But I went and because I didn't even really accept the initial premise that on Party Die, it was like him, because even in Party Die, he says, critical, I know my physical is tested all the time. I'm pitiful, sunk in place soon as I'm questioning my pride. I'm seeing ghosts, blacking out, relapsing one thought at a time. So even in this, he's saying he's imperfect. It's not like which was my initial point.
I gotta say, we're not arguing about whether or not Kendrick is imperfect. He has made that very clear.
FD, if you can, just hold that 1 second. Hold it 1 second. Omar's got to jump real quick. I just want to tell thank you so much for joining this panel and joining this conversation.
Hey, I appreciate you so much.
Do you have anything you want to let people know and or where they can find you or follow you or what they should look out for?
Yeah, you can follow me on all the social medias, Omar J Dorsey, and watch my show Bookie on HBO. Love y'all, man. Appreciate it.
Word up. Peace.
Right.
Just real quick, we're not arguing about whether or not Kendrick is imperfect or whether or not, it seems like we're all acknowledging that this is a mistake or that this conflicts on some way. If we're pulling out the Kendrick told us he was imperfect thing, because like if I meet a girl and say, hey, I'm a cheater and a manipulator, and then I cheat on her and manipulate her, I don't get to use that as a defense once I do it. It's like, hey, you cheated on me and manipulated me. Like, girl, you knew who I was. Like, that's gaslighter behavior.
No, you know I was bringing that up to say, because my initial point was Drake, I mean, when it was coming to the you're like a deadbeat, that was just encapsulated like an attack on Drake. And I don't think it's, and then somebody said that no, on Watch the Party Die, he was saying that it was like the end of the, but that's not necessarily what he was saying on Watch the Party Die. On Watch the Party Die, he's still saying that, basically, I'm not saying, I know that we all know he's not perfect, but I'm saying even when he says, I'm wondering what Lecrae would do, basically give them grace, but I want to kill them. So it's not like, I just reject it's like a statement of like a moral statement of now these are the people that are okay. These are people who aren't okay, because at the same time you could say he said this about Drake's father skills and hangs out with Playboi Carti, but he also said, you know, a lot of things about peace and hangs out with people who probably have literal bodies on their belt. So it's more like and I feel like that happens with Kendrick a lot, and it happens with a lot of artists like Kendrick. I feel like he'll say something, and I feel like it's not supposed to be interpreted just as Gandhi, if the best way, like the simplest way to say it. But then people go, he said it. What he's saying is, this is what we're supposed to do. These are the people that are okay. These aren't the people okay. And if he ever goes this way or that way, he's a hypocrite. Sometimes I just think he's just saying thoughts, and that's why I said I don't believe that his attack on Drake was supposed to be an all-encompassing attack on, like, or he was saying who he was going to be around and who he wasn't going to be around. But I also said that I completely understand the people who do have an issue with that. And see, I'm just saying that with where I come from, things that are said in a battle, I don't then look at you, I don't know how to explain it, but I don't hold you to that ground as to be like, okay, if you're in a battle and you say, you're whack because you're wearing red shoes. If I see you with somebody with red shoes, go, you're a hypocrite. I just in a battle, I just look at it differently. It's meant to be hyperbolic. It's meant to be a lot of stuff that Kendrick said. I don't know if he fully believes about Drake. It's just, what can I say at this time now to ruin you as much as possible? And I think it's a newer thing to be like, what I guess we should do is look at the moral repercussions after that and be held to that, because then I feel like there'd be a lot of walls that we would fall into now, because it's like, does he not mess with rappers who might have effed somebody's girl? Because if that's the case, I don't think he's ever gonna have a feature with anybody ever again.
Hey, Screw, but even if we take for a second the direction that he landed these punches at Drake in the battle, I don't think it's so much about the thing that everybody's picking up and saying, oh, he's mad at him because he did this to women. I think he's painting a picture of his character, and that whole thing is, I know you better than anybody else right now, and I'm going to show you I know you. You're a master manipulator. You're a gambler. You're somebody that's unreliable as a father. I take my kids. Like, I think he's already lined that up, and I think these things that people are like, oh, so he's against this, or oh, he's I'm pretty sure just being in the space of the music industry, I know for a fact, you meet a lot of people with questionable behavior that are not all just artists, execs. You got a lot of folks that's why, like, I don't ever defend Drake, but I thought it was really interesting to see what award show was that? Was it the with Conan O'Brien?
No, yeah,
my audience hated the Oscars. My audience hated when I said this, but I'm like, not that it's not a joke and comedians can't do it, but making a PDF joke in a room full of folks from Hollywood, I thought was kind of interesting. Because I'm like, it's almost like when you see two of your homies arguing, and then one of you laugh too much, and he like, don't get me started on you, because you ain't got no room to talk about me right now. That's how I'm kind of looking at this. So I'm like, and to one last point I was gonna make, and I won't go too long. FD, to your point about conflating all these things, I agree. I think there is the argument gets really, really loose when you start to just put everything and gel it all together. With that said, I think that same environment is the reason why Anthony Fantano's argument can exist, because of how loose of our interpretation of what Kendrick's goal was, or what he perceives himself as, or what he presents himself as. I think that's equally as dangerous, because now we're looking at, in my opinion, Anthony's my opinion, I'm looking at other artists and I'm like, well then who at all do we listen to? And do we need to have that conversation moving forward? Is this the new era that we're in?
I was also going to say real quick, in Euphoria, Kendrick, even after saying Drake might be a freaky boy and all this stuff, just to show that it's not really hypocrisy, he still said he's willing to listen to Drake. And so just stay with the melodies, I'll still listen to you. So if he's willing to do all that with Drake, and as long as Drake stays with the melodies, he'll still listen to him, then I don't really see the Playboi Carti feature as a hypocrite, because he wasn't saying, like, he was literally saying, I like Drake with the melodies, I just don't like you when you act tough.
So can I add like a different angle to this? Going back to my initial thing about
let me give one last take within the context, and then actually we'll roll, because we got into debate mode, and my back that's been killing me for like the last 30 minutes is like, hey, you gotta hold out for a second to get these takes off. I do think to kind of bring it full circle, this does get into the conversation about like consuming complex art, right? And like where you hold the message from an artist, because art is about communicating an idea. And I have, despite my despite knowing better, often found myself seeing an artist and saying, this is someone who is saying something that is valuable on levels beyond what his peers are doing. I did that for Kendrick. I did that for Lupe Fiasco, etc. And then you get to certain points. I did that for Kanye, right? And then over time, they show you, hey, I am not your savior. And so that is my fault, right? And anyone else that sees this criticism, sees this moment, and feels a sense of like conflict with where Kendrick was taking us a couple of months ago, that is our fault. I hold that criticism. But to me, it doesn't change that there is a conflict. And so how we contextualize and value that conflict, how we say, oh, this means I'll never listen to Kendrick again or never take him seriously, or Kendrick can do no wrong. Those are two extremes, and the reality is somewhere in the middle. And so I want to, before I leave, like say that I appreciate Moni and Curtis and Screw's takes and their position on this, and that like I'm not an anti-Kendrick guy, so that any of the, what they call them, the boogies in the chat don't come find me in the aftermath. I'm just putting out how I interpreted this particular moment in his musical career. So I'll leave it at that.
Culture united, our culture united, our culture united, our culture united, connecting all over the world, connecting all over the world, connecting all over the world, connecting all over the world. Connecting all over the world. Connecting all over the world.